Hello, everyone. Welcome to Developing Palates. I'm Aaron Loomis, and with me, as always, is June Liu. How you doing, June?
Good man. Happy Monday.
That's right. So today we are talking about the Partagas Heritage Rothschild. The cigar is 4.5 inches by 50 ring gauge. Comes out of the General Cigar Dominicana factory in the Dominican Republic. The wrapper is Honduran Alancho San Agustin, which is better known as OSA. Kind of came from a cigar that they featured that on a while back. Binder is Connecticut broadleaf. The filler is Honduran Yamastron, Dominican Piloto Cabano, and Mexican San Andres. The blender is Johnny's Diaz, and price point is $8.49. This cigar was released in March of 2017. So, June, with that out of the way, what was your pre-light experience like?
I'm not the guy to typically talk about bands much, but this band was like, "Hey, Cuban Partagas," and they just rip you off.
Right.
Come on, at least try to be a little different, right? But so that I actually, when I first got these cigars in, I thought I ordered some Cuban cigars actually. So
Cuban cigars don't come in cello, remember?
that's right. Not anymore. But in terms of the actual look of the cigar, I thought it was like a leathery, medium brown wrapper. It had this really nice, slight red hue to it, so pretty attractive. Veins pretty roughly pressed. I had a couple of veins that were protruding from the cigar, so more of a rustic look, I guess, of that nature for that point. Seems tight. In terms of roll, felt pretty good. No soft spots, uniform give throughout the whole cigar. And the head, it was like a ever so slightly tapered head, and had a really well applied triple cap on it. In terms of the nosy experience, off the wrapper, I got a mixture of sharp white pepper and flowers, smelling a foot, white pepper and mixed nuts, cold draw mixed nuts, and a little bit of a cedar, like an aged cedar coming through. So all in all, a good pre-light experience.
Yeah, wrapper was light brown, some slightly darker marbling in some places. There were a few raised veins that were present. The seams were smooth and pretty well hidden. On the sample I smoked, it looked like it was just a single cap. It was just one big cap that kind of went over the top. I couldn't find any other like lines that would represent other caps, but I'll have to take a look at some of the other ones I have just to see if they look a little bit different. But one band, like what you alluded to, primarily red, gold lettering and borders, very similar to the Cuban Partagas, the Siri line, so the Siri P, the Siri D. Aroma from the wrapper, quite noticeable grassy sweetness to it. And the foot gave sweetness as well, but more like kind of a stone fruit sweetness. Pre-light draw, kind of a mix of stone fruit sweetness and leather. So getting the flavor, what was your experience like?
First third, mainly flavors consisted of bread, black pepper, and charred oak. Out the retro, just a sharper black pepper paper, kind of like just like burning paper, and a bread note coming through. Finish, pretty thin mouthfeel, namely lingering dry wood. Strength and body, just medium. And for the most part, it was just medium throughout the whole cigar. Moving on to the second third. Second third's primary flavors is just increased notes of pretty much the same stuff. Bread, paper, and a dash of black pepper in the background. It's really interesting, this paper note that I kept getting, and by itself is all right, sure, it's paper, but especially when it got mixed in with that bread note, it was really weird. It was a mismatch of combinations, in my opinion. The wood note started losing out on that charred note, but now it's more like a general oak. The retro, same, deeper black pepper, paper, and bread. Finish has a greater mouthfeel, although still on the thinner side, with notes of lingering dry wood and paper. And then move on to the last third. It's pretty much a mirror of the second third. Still profile sitting around paper, bread, black pepper. If anything, within those three flavors, at certain times it'll spike it all together, and it'll just like taper back to like less than stick notes of the same thing. Retro picks up a nutty sweetness. On top of that, increased black pepper, paper, and bread. Finish now, primarily a soft and lingering paper note, followed by like a background of like a dry woodiness. So overall, I talk a lot about paper.
Yeah, for me, the initial draws brought a charred wood note along with a little, very faint black pepper in the background. Half inch in, the note that accompanied the wood kind of bordered between a char and a bitterness, kind of just depending on what draw I was on. Retrohale was like a slightly stale wood. And then an inch in, that charred bitterness kind of dropped way back, and the wood took on kind of a young or greenish note to it. And that's kind of how the first third finished out. And strength was just slightly above medium in that first third. Second third, wood isn't so green anymore. A little bitterness kind of settled into the profile. Quarter inch in, that young green note kind of returned, carried some bitterness as well. 3/4 of an inch in, the profile moved away from that young wood and kind of more towards that charred version with some bitterness in there. At an inch in, bitterness really took over, and the wood was just kind of like an afterthought in the background. And as the third came to a close, that bitterness settled down and became even with the wood. And the strength in that second third was just slightly above medium as well. Getting into the final third, that bitterness lessened and some mustiness joined in with the wood. And then at a half inch in, that wood note increased while that mustiness was in the background and the bitterness was kind of almost completely gone. Retrohale also kind of carried that musty wood note. And then at 3/4 of an inch in, a little bit of cream joined in with that musty wood. And that's kind of the profile that the cigar finished with. And the strength had dropped down to be right at medium. So getting into performance for burn and draw, what was your experience like?
Really well constructed cigar. I thought the burn was almost perfect. The only thing that deterred it from being that absolutely, picture perfect burn was the ashes for my cigar was a little bit flaky. Not a big deal, but hey, we're talking near perfection. So aside from that, cigar burn really even, cool. No touch-ups, no relights, so all good in that sense. In terms of the draw, it was a little tight for my liking, but nonetheless, I didn't really focus much on it within the cigar smoking time, and really no real complaints. So really good construction.
Yeah, there was a little bit of the waviness right kind of in the middle of the cigar, but it self-corrected itself, and then it was kind of perfect the rest of the way. The ash held on to the midpoint as well, so it dropped once, and then that was it. It burned, it kind of held on till the cigar wrapped up again, so that was really nice. For the draw, it was a bit snug for me. I don't feel like it affected the smoking experience, but it was definitely more snug than what I prefer. So overall, what were your thoughts on the cigar?
I feel like this cigar is like any other General cigar that's out. Pretty standard, typical offering from General. Nothing to really talk highly about nor diss on. The flavors by itself, if I were to just isolate each of the flavors, I like most of them, aside from that paper. But regarding that paper note, it just like earlier I was talking about, it just didn't meld with the other flavors very well at all. Mm-hmm. And also knowing that this is, I believe, like a $9 MSRP cigar for a Rothschild size, so a rather smaller size cigar. It's kind of steep for the flavors that it provides. So, my recommendation is if you want to try it, find it on discount and see what the non-Cuban Partagas tastes like.
Right. Yeah, this cigar never really got off the ground for me. I mean, start brought some general wood notes, kind of transitioning between the char and the young greenness. Then that second and third was kind of overtaken by bitterness. Things settled down in that final third, showed a little bit more complexity. If the cigar would have started the way that it finished and then kind of grew from there, I'd probably have a much better experience and better rating on the cigar. Strength stayed right around medium the whole time. But with some of those unpleasant flavors in the midpoint, I'm hoping maybe revisiting this cigar with a little bit more rest might provide a little bit of a better experience there. So let's get into the scores. I gave it a 5 even, and you gave it a 5.5. How do you think that matches up with your experience?
5.5 makes sense. I assume within kind of the difference between you and I is me perhaps scoring the construction pretty well. But if the construction wasn't so good, it would have just been on a spot on 5, meaning average cigar for me.
Yeah. I mean, my matches up well, and the reason we had a kind of a difference is I did rate the draw a little bit lower, but I also rated the middle third subpar just because of that immense bitterness that I got. I mean, the bitterness just took over the profile,
Mm.
and you really had to search to find the wood in that background. So otherwise, I rated it average for the first third and the final third, but yeah, the middle third just really dropped down. I'm glad it recovered from that. Sometimes you get the bitterness hits the cigar and you can never get it to leave, and then at that point you're just like, man, I know it's a review. I got to keep going through it. But if it always goes through the rest of the cigar, you're ready to just chuck it and either light something up or just call it a day and try another day and see if you get better results. But yeah, I mean, it's an average score. I didn't really have high hopes going into it, just because General puts out some good cigars, but the bulk of their portfolio, I would say, kind of sits around this average score type thing. I mean, you just get some similar notes kind of across all the cigars. You don't really have, um, kind of harkening back to the Cubans. Like, you don't have a profile for a marca across the different general lines like you would through the different Cuban lines. So, it's not. If you find a gem in there every once in a while, that's great, and they do have some of those. I just don't know that this is one. Unless it just needs a little more, maybe visit 6 months, a year down the road, maybe it changes up a little bit. I don't know. Any other final thoughts from you?
It's funny that you got such a strong bitterness to this cigar. I remember when we first got these, literally the day of, I actually lit one up, and it was so bitter that I actually pitched it. So
Yeah. So maybe it is, maybe just more time. Maybe more time will really settle these things down, and they might really shine at that point. So worthwhile checking them out a little bit more down the road.
Yep.
Well, if you're just catching this on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to us, but also check out the full written review on the website, developingpalates.com. Be sure to check us on all the social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Google+. You can always catch our review recaps on podcasts, so iTunes, Google Play, and Podbean. Thank you for tuning in, and we will catch you on the next one.